Glad that you are here. I am Alyssa DeFilippo with Parents Helping Parents. I run a program called Connections California. It is our online statewide resource and information hub for transition to adulthood and adult services. All right. This is a topic I've been looking forward to. Do we need a special needs financial planner and a special needs attorney? It's a question I was asking about 3 years ago, and for our family, the answer was a resounding yes. So I am going to introduce our presenters of the evening. They are no strangers to the Connections California screen. We have from Cookman Law, Ellen Cookman. Ellen founded Cookman Law in 2015 to help families of all shapes and sizes plan for a future and utilize available resources. Ellen is a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law from the California State Bar Board of Legal Specialization. And from the Special Needs Planning Group, returning are Ken Prodger and Scott Gill. Ken Prodger is a financial advisor who specializes in helping families plan for the future, including special needs trusts, life care planning, letters of intent, and how to obtain and preserve government benefits. Ken has a son with special needs and is a past board chair of Parents Helping Parents. So I always like to thank Ken for his service. Scott Gill is a seasoned financial advisor with a passion for building long-lasting relationships with his clients. He specializes in providing financial planning for services to families with special needs, helping them to achieve their financial goals. So I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to turn the conversation starter over to Ellen Cookman, and we will begin.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Alyssa. I'm really excited about this, and it's a different format than I'm used to. I'm used to having a lot of slides, and I kind of rely on those, but I do think it'll be great to have a conversation about the different people on the bus. I like thinking of estate planning and special needs planning as there's a bus that you're driving, and there's different people who occupy different seats. And estate planners and special needs planners are two of those people. So I wanted to kind of launch it off by talking about what do special needs planners actually do, right? If you were to call one, what will you talk to them about? What do they specialize in? What don't they specialize in? I get so many questions about things that I don't do. And I think sometimes my clients get embarrassed, like, oh, I'm supposed to ask somebody else about that. So hopefully this will help you kind of distinguish. And by the way, don't be embarrassed with asking any questions, because this is like a different language. We're all learning and trying to comprehend different things. One other thing I want to mention is that I do have a YouTube channel, and a lot of the things we're talking about here are covered in the YouTube channel. And in fact, I recently interviewed Ken and Scott about financial projections, and that'll be launching, that'll be available soon. So, okay, what do special needs attorneys do? Well, first of all, we provide great advice. All right, we're lawyers. We love to talk and advise people. In fact, before we got on this call, Ken was like, uh-oh, there's going to be a lawyer talking. Are we going to get a word in edgewise? But yes, you will. You will. I'll share, I promise. But what do we advise on? We advise on, first of all, on public benefits. So special needs attorneys are typically very familiar with all the different public benefits. The income streams, the health insurance, housing, like Section 8 housing, SNAP benefits, just the different ones that are available if you're low income or low assets. Now, a lot of us, including myself, do not do public benefits applications. Usually you come in and you already know your child is either on certain benefits or will refer you out to a consultant who does that type of work. But usually we don't. We also advise on taxes. So believe it or not, there's a lot of different types of taxes out there. The one that people are most familiar with, because you have to pay them every year, are income taxes. But there's many other taxes, and for that, you'll go to your accountant, all right? But The other taxes out there are estate taxes. That's what you might pay, or your estate might pay when you die. But spoiler alert, probably most of you on this call, unfortunately, are not going to be subject to estate taxes because the estate tax exemption is going up to $15 million per person next year. So it doesn't apply to that many people. We also advise on gift taxes. Okay, if you're making a gift to somebody, sometimes you have to pay a gift tax, but usually after you've used up that $15 million exemption. We advise on GST taxes. That's generation skipping transfer taxes. We advise on capital gains taxes. That's if you buy something and it increases in value and then you sell it, that you have to pay tax on the gain. So we'll talk to you about that. And we also advise a lot on California property taxes. So those are really the 5 taxes that we focus on. We don't focus on income taxes. Okay. Then the next thing, the thing that we really look at is planning for the future and looking at what should your estate plan look like. And even though I am a special needs planner, I usually do the revocable trust as well. So we'll do the entire estate plan. We do a revocable trust to help you avoid probate when you're gone, okay? And a special needs trust for your child. Usually we'll do a standalone special needs trust for several reasons, but and we might do a dynasty trust or a lifetime trust if you have a neurotypical child. It's very protective. We usually do pour over wills, durable powers of attorney, advanced healthcare directives. So there's a whole package that we do. A lot of times people call our office and they say, we need a special needs trust for our child. And we go, okay, that's great. But we have to look at the entire picture, because how is money going to get into that special needs trust? Where is it going to come from? Usually it comes from the parent's revocable trust. So it's to avoid probate, but also to direct money in the revocable trust. You say, where do things go? Now, there's certain things you need to think about when you're setting up this revocable trust and the special needs trust. And the 2 main things, whenever you're going to a special needs trust attorney, you're thinking about who's going to be successor trustee and where's the money going to go. All right, so who are the beneficiaries and who's managing it? Who's the trustee? These are huge discussions that I could talk for an hour on each topic, all right? But I'm not going to. But just suffice it to say, these are the things that we hash out during conversations. We talk about the pros and cons of leaving it to this person and how should this child receive it. And do you really want to name the neurotypical sibling as successor trustee? Are you sure? Maybe name them as trust protector instead, right? So we're looking at, again, who's going to be on the bus of the special needs trust for your disabled loved one, and what roles are they going to play? How are they going to be able to support your child in the best way possible? The bad news that we usually have is that you work so hard to support your kid, and there's no one person who can replace you. There's no silver bullet that, like, all right, now we have this person to step up. No one else can do it the way that you can. So we're trying to put together a team of people to fill that void when you're gone or if you're incapacitated. All right. Now, after everything's drafted, we want to have regular check-ins, okay? See how things are going. These documents typically are revocable, they're breathable until you're gone. And then they lock down, they're irrevocable, and then they're administered. The next thing that a special needs trust attorney can do is they advise the trustee on administering the trust, how to get stuff from the revocable trust to the special needs trust. There's actually a process that you go through called trust administration, okay? So these are all the different things that a special needs planning attorney will advise on. So now I'm going to look right over here. There's some questions that came up. Okay, so one person asked, how much does it cost to have this type of lawyer and this type of planner? So, I typically charge a flat fee, and the actual fee depends on what work needs to be done. So I don't just quote hey, usually it's about this amount because we really need to get to know you and your situation and what needs to be done. Okay. And I can have Ken and Scott, if you guys want to, would you like to address that as well?
Sure. So our pricing, again, we do a flat fee pricing as a fee-based, financial planner, but it depends on the complexity. And so some of the things that might make it more complex is stock options, rental properties, all of those things that your financial situation is more complex than, a typical, couple W-2 type of employee, and they're contributing their 401k and they have, their house and a 30-year mortgage. That's less complicated than some of the other, families that we come across. So yeah, it's based on complexity.
Right. Yeah. And also the value that we're providing. I really want to emphasize that the people who do this right, they're not just like printing out some pre-made documents and saying sign here. That's not what we do. Okay. Everybody has a completely different situation. A lot of what I do as I'm listening to people, there are little flags that go off in my mind. Yeah, if you can imagine, I have like I don't know, a 200 item list of things that I'm listening for. And somebody says something, go, aha, and I write it down and I ask more questions about that. And that only comes from years of experience and learning these things. So that's a lot of what you're paying for, is you're paying for somebody who, so you know that they get it right. The challenge with estate planning is you don't really know if it's done right until you're gone. And then it's too late to figure out whether it's right or not. It's just the unfortunate nature of this. So you really want to make sure that you get it right. So speaking of which, somebody had asked a question. I have a special needs trust done for my daughter and I had an attorney set this up. Should I go to him as a planner too? Well, so the estate planning, I mean, it sounds like somebody already did the estate planning. If they are a special needs planner, if they specialize in that's great. I have a dirty little secret for you. There's a lot of estate planning attorneys out there who are not special needs planners. And they'll say, oh, you have a kid with disabilities. They really want the work. And so they go, all right, I can prepare that. I'll do a special needs trust for you. They have no idea what they're doing. No clue. But they have this form and they trust the person who made the form, but they can't tell you the first thing of why is it called a special needs trust? How does this work? How do we know what is a special needs trust? They have no clue. I would not recommend working with somebody like that because you don't know if it's going to work or not. And I've reviewed a lot that are totally faulty for many, many, many different reasons. So definitely go to a special needs planning attorney. And I'm not just saying that because I am one, but because I've seen so many times this go awry. Ken and Scott, would you guys like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very specialized field. There's not a lot of attorneys that practice significant time in the special needs community. I certainly, as financial advisors, there's very few of us that are actually focused on that. I mean, special needs planning group, over 80% of our clients are special needs families. So it's with literally every single day. So although you may see your situation is very, very unique, probably we've come across something that's a little, similar. Now, everybody plan is a little bit unique, but we've been there and done that for numerous families that are in similar situations.
Great. Okay, next question. Is there a legal definition of special needs, such as in special needs trust? If so, what is the definition? Well, what I'd like to address is actually what is the definition of special needs when it comes to public benefits applications? Okay, will your child qualify for public benefits? Because a special need can be anything. I remember when I was enrolling my children at a preschool, they said, we believe that everybody has a special need. Whether they're, the noise is too loud or they have this type of sensitivity or whatever, we all have our own special needs. But in this context, we want to see if somebody has a disability that is so severe that it impairs their ability to work and support themselves. Because the public benefits are really intended to provide an income stream and health insurance. And those are the two things that you get when you work. Now, my hope is someday health insurance will be decoupled from employment and that we won't have that in the US anymore. But that's where we are right now. So we have to find a way to provide an income stream like a salary and health insurance to children who or adults who can't do this because of their disability. And so that's really the way I see a special need is, I guess for special needs planning, well, let me say for a special needs trust, anybody can qualify for a special needs trust, a third-party special needs trust. You don't have to be receiving public benefits. You don't have to, be on the autism spectrum or this or that. To qualify for public benefits, on the other hand, you do need to have a specific disability that interferes with your ability to work and support yourself.
Yeah, Ellen, let me chime in here a little bit. So we oftentimes when people say, do I need a special needs trust? We kind of boil it down to two reasons. Are we trying to protect what we call needs-based government benefits? And or do you need control because you're afraid maybe you have a child with high functioning autism that may be employed and maybe be able to live their life, but you're afraid of them being taken advantage of. So we kind of boil it down to government benefits and control. Those are the two big triggering things for special needs. And sometimes we call it, we'll say, okay, maybe call it a supplemental needs trust. Maybe, maybe they don't meet the Social Security definition of what a disability is in terms of employment. Still doesn't mean that you can't set up a trust to be able to help that child. Maybe it's just the frosting on the cake. They're able to provide the cake in terms of their own employment stuff, but maybe you need a little bit of frosting.
Love it. I love it. Now, we can keep answering questions, or I do want to give Ken some time to talk about what a financial advisor does, and then we can circle back to the questions. What do you think, Ken? Should we do a few more questions, or do you want to dive in?
Well, let's dive in a little bit, and then
Great.
So if we do this for a few minutes, then we can spend the bulk of the time questions, because that's really the great thing. Scott, do you want to do the first slide? We actually have a slide. We're prepared. No. No. Scott, are you going to share the screen?
Yep, sharing right now. All right.
Do the puzzle one?
Know if you guys can see this. Come.
Okay, so what we like to say is that we would be generally the parents are the ones that hire us. We're their financial advisor, but we're also going to be their child's financial advocate. And what does that mean? That we're going to take in what's in the best interest of the child as well. So when we talk about the quality of life for the loved one, the one with the special needs, you've got all these little puzzle pieces that fit on top of that. Now you should notice they don't fit nice and well together because there's always going to be gaps. And we always remind parents that your first job is advocate for your child because all of these different things, they don't really mesh. But you've certainly got, the legal documents, all the different what needs-based government. But we kind of focus on the center, which is the life care plan. What's in the best interest of my child? Where's my child going to live? Housing is a huge issue. How do they qualify for some of these government benefits? I have my own retirement, and we're basically planning for two futures, meaning that the future of the family and then how that passes on to the child to be able to support them for the rest of their life. So two futures. So sometimes we'll get a thing, well, gee, I've got a special needs trust. Aren't I done? No, not really. That's a piece of the puzzle. And what we focus on a lot is how do we fund the trust? How much is the trust going to need for that adult child's lifetime? So we set up the funding mechanisms and then we try and come up with a cost determination of, okay, how much actually has to fund that trust? And then like Ellen talking about taxes, what's the best way from a tax perspective to be able to fund that trust? Scott, you want to chime in on anything?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, Ken, from what you're saying, and even Ellen, from what you shared too, right? It's just plans are meant to be fluid, right? Rules change all the time. And we try to make a very big effort to not just understand where you're at right now as a family, what your values are, your goals are, and what we're trying to accomplish, but we need to help design something that can maintain flexibility as life continues to evolve. And what we have found is that it takes a team and it takes folks with expertise in all of these areas to help craft something that's very, very unique to provide that best quality of life, right? So at the end of the day, right, this is meant to be a process, not something that's necessarily set in stone to never be adjusted at some point in the future too, right? And I think that dovetails, Ken, as we start looking at the next piece of the puzzle, like what actually goes into the plan itself. And so I think you said it very well that we're planning for two futures, right? We're not just the financial advisor for many of the parents that hire us, but we're ultimately the child's financial advocate. So when we talk about building a financial plan, well, what does that actually mean? Right. Well, and I think the first thing that it means is what we're going to do is we're going to help understand where you're at right now. We're going to project into the future where this current path is taking you. And we're going to figure out, does it align with what you said is most important and what you're trying to do? So a written financial plan to us is going to cover several facets, and it's going to use a lot of different tools that help us stress test, meaning in good situations, does it work? And not so favorable situations, does it work? What's going to be the most optimal path to take in terms of the next best decision for you and your wealth? And so it's a discussion about investment accounts that people have, whether it's through their retirement, through their employer, personal retirement plans, or investment accounts, right? We want to help understand what's the risk that you're taking, and are you receiving relative returns comparable to that risk to help you accomplish a future goal, right? We're going to have discussions about things like your insurance, right? There was a couple that we were meeting with a little bit earlier today, right? They're pre-retirees looking to retire within about the next 10 years. And what's one of the biggest concerns that they have on their mind? How am I going to take care of myself if I have health-related needs that Medicare won't cover for me as an aging individual? Right? So what does it mean in terms of evaluating where am I most vulnerable? How strong is the foundation upon which I'm building my plan? So it's a discussion about things other than investment accounts that could potentially grow over time. But the Monte Carlo simulations and this efficient frontier analysis are tools that Ken and I use to help evaluate what's the probability of you having success given the things that you are doing today, right? And that is going to, again, factor in inflation, costs going up over time, income taxes today or potential estate taxes. Ellen, as you mentioned before, for those that have done very well that may have to pay something upon transferring of wealth, right? What does it mean going from saving while we're working and having a paycheck to creating a paycheck for yourself? And is it sustainable even with volatility that you might experience in terms of financial assets that you hold? But a big one that comes up, and I think this is where we can dovetail very well with professionals like Ellen, is this idea on estate planning, right? Many of our families have multiple children, right? Neurotypical or those that have special needs. And this discussion of what is equal versus what is equitable comes out, as in who gets what and at what percentage, right? And so it's not always as simple, well, each individual receives half, 50-50. Maybe one gets 60% and the other gets 40%. And Ellen, you could speak to this. Perhaps there's language in a legal document that allows for flexibility when a trust may be funded upon the passing of the parents too. But I think it leads to conversation, and it leads to discussions with multiple generations of how do we best support ourselves today, but more importantly in the future, and what tools are we giving those future decision makers to help provide that high quality of life, right? So when we talk about planning for two futures, it really is planning for the success of the parents, because we see over and over again how the success of the parents oftentimes leads to the success of their loved ones as that next generation too. right? And so, Ken, I don't know if you want to add anything else from this slide, perhaps that I missed, or even Ellen for yourself, and how that relates to your practice too.
Yeah, Ellen, we'd love to chime in the equal versus equitable distribution of when you have a typical child with a special needs child. I mean, because a lot of times when we see
Yeah.
things where they go, okay, well, we have three kids, so everybody gets a third, is that really equitable? Because sometimes a child may be in a group home, that there may not be a lot of expenses. Somebody
Mhm.
may be living independently where there is significant expenses or medical expenses. So that's where we have to really, uncover the rocks and really figure out, okay, what type of expenses do you anticipate in the future?
Mhm.
Exactly. When I'm having a conversation with clients, this comes up all the time. And first of all, I send them to Ken and Scott to do financial projections to see what does the special needs child really need. And we want to get some sort of range or a number. And sometimes we say, okay, that off the top goes to the special needs kid. And anything remaining can be split between the other neurotypical kids because we want to make sure that the special needs kid gets what they need. Everybody else can work and support themselves. I definitely think equitable, then parents go, well, the kids are going to hate me because I'm not being equal. It's like, well, you'll be gone. You're dead. you know? They, you won't be around to notice as much. So I definitely think, we treat, and this is even not in the disability community. If you have two kids and one of them's an investment banker and has tons of money and one of them is a teacher and not making that much, I mean, a lot of times the parent will want to leave more to the teacher just because that's the need. And I think that's great. You get to decide. It's your money. You get to decide where you want it to go. Nobody's going to be questioning you. If you want to leave it equally to all the kids, that's fine as well.
Yeah. So one of the questions, just shifting topics a little bit. So one of them says, at what age should we begin the process when we have a diagnosis? So Ellen, what's your feeling on that?
Before you die.
Right. If you know when you die, we can do it the month before. But other than that, it's never too early.
And if you do know when you're going to die, let's go to Las Vegas and we can make a lot of money. You clearly have some great skills there.
Yeah. But there's certainly big transition points that we see, when a child is going to be turning 18, we see a lot of parents say, okay, now is the time. Fortunately or unfortunately, we also get parents that are fairly older that are in their 60s or 70s and they have their adult child with a disability living with them and then they start facing their own mortality and they finally go, we need to get something done because we're running out of time ourselves. So it's never too early, and with all good estate plans and financial plans there's always built-in flexibility. Very seldom, it would be the rare exception that we would actually fund a special needs trust prior to the parents passing away, certainly a third party special needs trust. So we try and build in flexibility in the plans. So God forbid if your disabled child passes away before you don't want it where your whole estate is locked up into a special needs trust that won't be used. So you want that flexibility, in the legal documents and the financial planning. Scott and I, routinely, what we do is, again, we set up the funding mechanisms to fund the special needs trust. We don't fund this trust at this point.
Mhm.
Great.
Could I just chime in and say that some folks look a little confused about what's the difference between a regular trust and a special needs trust? So maybe just some
You
foundational.
got it. Okay, well, first let's talk about what is a trust. A trust is a contract or an agreement between somebody setting it up and somebody managing it for the benefit of the beneficiary. A revocable trust or a family trust or living trust, we call it different things, is basically a trust that you set up as the parents to hold your own stuff. Now, why would you want to do that? It's basically to avoid probate. In California, if you have more than, it's about $200,000 or a home, if you have some stuff and you don't want to go through the court process, there's a process called the probate administration. And I have a video called 10 Reasons Why I Hate Probate. All right. So it's horrible. Okay. You don't want to go through it. So You set up a revocable living trust that says who's going to manage things when you're gone and where is your stuff going to go, and a few other things. And the court is not needed because you've already described how things go. Okay. Then you also set up a special needs trust. So that's a trust not for you, but it's for your child. Now you are the settlers. You're the ones setting it up, and you are the initial trustees. You're the ones managing it at the beginning. But most likely you won't be managing it when it's the important time. The successor trustee, who would also have trusts as baskets, they hold stuff. So I think about things at the beginning, everything's going to be in your bank and brokerage accounts. Actually, retirement accounts are held separately. But then when you die, the revocable trust then goes at least partly to the special needs trust. That's when the money actually gets funded. That's when things go into the special needs trust. I hope that wasn't as clear as mud.